After you've imported data into your data set, there's often a need to adjust or correct the data with it already being in your DVAAPBase data set. That's done on the Edit Data step. You can reach that either by directly clicking on the link here or clicking on the next button to get to that step. I'll go ahead and click this quick link here. So you can see in this data set I have two types of data currently imported. I have workforce data imported and applicant data imported. All the other data editing buttons are disabled. At this point I can edit the workforce data just by clicking on this button. That brings up the workforce editing screen. All the data is presented here in an Excel-like manner. You can edit these records in place here. And those changes are immediately take effect when you click the Done button. If for some reason you make an edit and it was incorrect, even after you've made several edits, you can undo those changes as long as you haven't clicked Done and left the screen. So if I make several changes, if I change, for instance, this few records here to Wyoming, you can see I've changed 3 records here. I've changed the establishment name to WY. Now if I click Undo, those changes get reverted back to the original values. So the same applies to any changes in here. You'll notice some of these fields in the data are drop-down boxes. These are coded fields. That means that the field only contains a certain type of value. There's a few in here. The first 2 you see are the race. Race are coded to specific race codes. Those are the only valid values that can be put in here, and those can be selected. If you need to edit them, you just select the different correct race from the drop-down. Gender is obviously coded to male, female, and unknown. And there's a few other coded values. Let's take a look at those. You'll see these in all the different types of import files. So, veteran self-ID response has a value of the person self-identifying as a veteran. That's vet. Not means they self-ID'd as not being a veteran. Ref, which is short for refused to state or refused to answer. And unknown just simply means it's unknown. You'll also notice that a few fields are checkboxes instead of just text entry. Those are yes/no values in the data file. For instance, this indicates whether or not the person identified as a disabled veteran or a recently separated veteran. Over here we have whether or not the person was a union member. Those can be toggled on and off just by clicking the checkbox. You can see there's another coded value. This is for the disabled self-identification. Whether a person self-identifies as being disabled, not disabled, refused to state, or unknown. And those are the typical files fields that will be coded in any data. On any of the data editing screens, you can sort all of the data shown by clicking the header of the field that you want to sort. For instance, if I want to sort this by the establishment name, I click that header, and the records sort by establishment in ascending order. If I click that header again, the order is reversed, and it's now in reverse alphabetical order. That can be done with any of the fields on the screen here. If you want to only look at certain records or edit certain records, you can filter that using the controls here at the bottom of the screen. For instance, if I want to only see records for a certain establishment, I can pick the field from this list of the existing fields here. I can say I only want to see the records where the establishment name contains, and I can put in the value here I want to see. I'll put in CA for California, and I click Filter. Now only the records in the workforce file that contain CA in the establishment field are shown here. And the count of records that satisfy that filter is 203 as shown in the corner here. If I clear the filter, clicking the Clear button, I return to being able to see all of the workforce data. As you can see, the record count goes back up to the total number of workforce records of 1,000. When I've completed all the editing I want to do, simply click Done, and those changes are saved to the database. You may have noticed that on the Editing Data screen, there are also these additional buttons next to the Data Editing buttons. It says CSV on each of these buttons. That allows you to export the corresponding data out to a CSV file. Now, in a previous video, we showed you where you set the settings for your CSV export folder. If you need to review that, go back to the settings video and take a look there. So that folder was established already. I have that on my system here. Now if I click any of these buttons here next to the corresponding data, it will immediately export that data out to a CSV file for me. So I'll go ahead and click the button here next to Workforce. And now it's exported all 1,000 records to a CSV file, and it tells me where that record was put. I'll close this. Let's take a look at that file. Okay, so here's the contents of my CSV exports folder. You can see at the top of the list here, I have my export of my Workforce file as a CSV file. Now, all the exports are always listed as the name of your data set. In this case, tutorial dataset changed, underscore, and then the type of data. So let's take a look at this data. I'll open this up. That'll launch the data in Excel. So here's the resulting CSV export file. All the headers contain the field names, and all the data that's in the Workforce file was shown here. So that's a quick way to export your data out of DVAAPBase if you need to use it in a different system, or if you want to make a backup of your data in a format other than in the database. Or for any other reason, if you want to analyze your data in Excel using some other types of analysis or computations, it's a quick, easy way to export your data to a CSV file that can be used in Excel and many other systems that support CSV file types.